Hi, everybody. My name is Carrie Mitchell. I'm one of two instructional coaches at the Larimer campus, and I've been teaching residentially at CSU and Front Range for 20 years, and I've been teaching online for close to 15 years now. In this video, I want to share with you something that I've learned to utilize in my online teaching, and that's called an online guided thinking activity. This is something that you may find a use for in the last 3 weeks of the semester, but if you don't, you might look to summer, as some of us will be teaching online in the summer. You may look to fall if we have to move our classes online for fall. And so this is just a great little tool. I've shared this with people that I've coached and people that I've mentored in online learning, and I get feedback over and over again saying that this is one of the most useful things they've learned for teaching their online class. And so I am in one of my online classes. This is an online learning community that I teach with Eric Hub. I teach the English portion, he teaches philosophy. And so if you're in your own D2L, you'll recognize these tools. And two of the most popular tools that people tend to use when they are running an online class are the discussions, which you're probably familiar with, and the quiz tool. But what about when you have activities that you want students to work through on their own, and they're not necessarily quizzes? It's not something that you're testing them on, and it's not really something that qualifies as a discussion. Maybe it's something that you need them to be individually investing their critical thinking in, but you don't really need them to be talking about it with other students in class, but you want to see how their critical thinking is unfolded. So Eric and I have invented this kind of guided thinking activity that we use in our class, and we build it with the quiz tool. And so if I click on quizzes in my class, you will see that in our class, we have two types of assignments. We have something called activities, and then we have something called reading quizzes. So the reading quizzes are actual quizzes, but the activities, we tell our students, are not quizzes. They're just located in the quiz area. And so we have to train our students early in the semester to recognize the difference between those two things. Students have negative connotations sometimes with the word quiz. And so just because we put these in the quiz area, we have to make it very clear to students, these aren't quizzes. You're not being tested here. This is kind of formative learning that you're doing, where we get to see how you're learning and give you feedback. And so let me give you an example of what one of these looks like. I am here on activity number 5, Deontology. So this is Eric's material. And actually, I want to show you the preview. So if I click on preview, then we can see what this looks like from the student view. So if I was a student in here, I would see the instructions, and at the bottom here it says start quiz. And so it looks to a student like it is a quiz, which is again why you have to tell them that it's not. So I would click on start quiz, and I would see a question. And this is a question where Eric is asking students to reflect on one concept from a longer reading that they have already done by now. And he's asking them to really summarize that concept in their own words. And that's just a way for him to check for understanding, to say, do they really understand this whole idea of what it takes to be a reasoning, moral being, as Kant talks about it. On the next page, he does a little bit more of that testing for understanding, where he takes the first formulation of Kant's categorical imperative, he restates it for students, and then asks them to put it in their own words. This is a really tough concept for students, really important that they understand what it means. And so he gets to look at how they interpret it. Further in the activity, we get into application. And so this isn't just about comprehension. This is about trying to apply Kant's formulation to a specific situation and explain how it is that Kant would reason that it was moral or immoral. So you can see how Eric is guiding students through all of these different questions. There's probably about 5 questions in here. And when it's done, he can take a look and see, did they really understand the concepts that they've been reading about? I'd like to give you one more example of one of these. This is one that I created. This has to do with database research. It's a skill that we need students to practice in this class. And so this is what I built as a guided thinking activity for students. So again, they start the quiz, and rather than just embedding questions, I embedded a short screencast that I created. So students have to watch the screencast, and then they need to answer a couple of questions. And then they have to watch another video that I found online, and they have to answer a couple questions. And they have to watch another video that I created, and they have to complete a task and report back to me on it. And so I have these videos embedded in here with little tasks assigned to them. And what's so nice about that is I can give students content, little micro lectures, and then I can kind of quiz them and see, or ask them questions to see how well they comprehended or how well they're able to apply the information I gave them. This is a much more effective way to deliver a lecture or to deliver content to students by breaking it into little pieces and then asking them to give feedback on it or to give you some responses on it. If you were to just dump these videos into the content area, it's really hard to hold students accountable for them. So that's why these guided thinking exercises are so great. And then on the back end as a teacher, Eric and I probably only spend about 15 or 20 minutes going through and looking at how students did on this as a whole class so that we can get a sense of whether that class is on track or not, or whether we need to intervene with some just-in-time feedback through an email. So that is the tool. And before I close out this screencast, I will just mention that you build it as though you were building a quiz. And you can just give it a title, whatever you want to call it. And you're going to add some questions. When you are deciding what kinds of questions, if you're going to build the guided thinking exercise, kind of like what I showed you, you would select written response questions. And then you would just type in your question text, you'd save it, you'd move on. When you were done, you would save it, and the guided thinking activity would be built and your students would be able to complete it. So I hope you find that to be a useful little tool or tip. As you can see, we use that very commonly in our class. It's really how we do a lot of our teaching and how we assess our students' learning. So if you have questions, feel free to reach out and email me. I hope you're all doing well.